Order. I call this meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Human Resources. I'm Chris Palmer, MLA for Kings West and the chair of the committee. And today, in addition to reviewing appointments to agencies, boards, and commissions, we'll also hear from the Department of Labour, Skills and Immigration regarding health and safety initiatives. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody in the room to please make sure your phones are on silent. And I'll ask all of our committee members to introduce themselves and their constituency, beginning with Vice Chair Burns.
My name is Rick Burns. I'm MLA for Hammonds Plains Lucasville.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Melissa Sheehy-Richard, MLA in Hants West.
Good afternoon. MLA for Pictou Centre, Danny McGilvery.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Ali Goke, MLA for Clayton Park West.
Ian Rankin, Timberley Prospect.
Paul Wozni, Sackville Cobequid. I use he, him pronouns.
And I am Christy Gallagher. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from Halifax, Chebucto.
Thank you, committee. And for the purposes of Hansard, I also recognize the presence of Legislative Counsel Killian Schlemmer to my left and Legislative Committee Clerk Judy Kavanagh to my right. So at this moment, I'd like to ask our guests just indulge us for a few minutes while we do some agencies, boards, and commissions work, and then we'll be back to hear from our visitors in a few minutes. So we'll move on to agencies, boards, and commission appointments. Do I have MLA Burns?
So a motion for the Department of Emergency Management. I move to recommend Justin Melnick be appointed member to the E911 Cost Recovery Committee.
Motion on the table. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. MLA Burns.
So for the Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture, I move to recommend Cynthia Brown and Leigh Lewis McCrae to be appointed as directors to the Nova Scotia Fishery and Aquaculture Loan Board.
Motion on the table. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. MLA Burns.
For the Department of Health and Wellness, I move to recommend John McIsaac be appointed member, public rep to the Council of the College of Dental Hygienists of Nova Scotia.
Motion on the table. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. MLA Burns.
For the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration, I move to recommend Nicole McKim be appointed member, trade union rep, to the Arbitration Advisory Committee.
Motion on the table, discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. And MLA Burns.
So for the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration, again, I also move to recommend Barry Landry's position be amended from member at large to employee representative for the industrial manufacturing sector for the apprenticeship board.
A motion on the table, discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. So thank you, MLA Burns and committee. We will now move on to our topic for the day, and we'd like to welcome all of our visitors here to our committee today. Our topic today is workplace health and safety initiatives, and I'd like to ask all of our guests to introduce themselves going across the table, and then I believe there'll be an opening statement. So we'll begin on my left with Ms. Chouinard.
Hi, Vanessa Chouinard, Associate Deputy Minister, LSI.
Ryan Grant, Deputy Minister, LSI.
Hi, folks. Scott Nauss, Senior Executive Director of the Safety Branch.
Good afternoon. Fred Jeffers, Executive Director, Occupational Health and Safety Division.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe, Deputy Minister Grant, you do have some opening remarks, so we'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. Good afternoon. I'm Ryan Grant, Deputy Minister of Labor, Skills and Immigration. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm joined by Vanessa Chouinard, Associate Deputy Minister, Scott Nauss, and Fred Jeffers, who have both provided introductions as well. Today, I want to talk about the steps we're taking to improve workplace health and safety in Nova Scotia. Workplace safety is about creating environments where workers feel safe, valued, and supported, both physically and psychologically. One way we're doing this is by making health and safety information more accessible through NovaSafe. We launched NovaSafe in June 2023. It's an online and mobile-friendly platform that provides up-to-date, easy-to-understand workplace health and safety information. It has become a vital tool since then, with over 50,000 users and more than 150,000 views. The platform covers a wide range of topics. It is available in over 240 languages, ensuring accessibility for workers from all backgrounds. Whether you're a worker, an employer, or a supervisor, NovaSafe makes it easier to understand safety regulations and best practices in plain language. It also helps with safety matters that impact the public, such as elevators and lifts. We're continuously improving it based on user feedback and emerging safety trends. In just a few minutes, I'll give you a live demonstration of NovaSafe, but first I want to talk about another key workplace issue, psychological well-being. We've heard from workers that systemic issues like racism, inequity, and a lack of psychological safety need to be addressed. That's why, starting in September 2025, employers will be required to implement policies specifically addressing workplace harassment. This builds on a major step we took in September 2024, when gradual onset psychological injuries became a compensable workplace injury. These changes are part of our broader commitment to ensuring that workplaces are safe, inclusive, and supportive for everyone. In 2023, we engaged over 600 Nova Scotians to better understand the challenges surrounding workplace harassment. The message was clear. We need stronger workplace cultures, championed by leadership. More effective reporting mechanisms must be in place. To support these changes, we're working with partners to launch a new awareness campaign to help workplaces understand and address harassment, a dedicated website in April 2025 with resources for employers and workers, additional supports and training to help implement the new regulations. These steps are just the beginning of our long-term commitment to safer, healthier workplaces. Another major focus for us is in injury prevention. Every workplace injury or death is one too many. The impact extends far beyond the workplace, affecting families, colleagues, and entire communities. Our thoughts are with those who have experienced the tragedy of a workplace fatality or have been affected by workplace injury. We are committed to working with all Nova Scotians to make Nova Scotia the safest place to work in Canada. Following the last review of the workers' compensation system, the Workers' Compensation Board has been the official lead for prevention in Nova Scotia. However, WCB, the safety branch, and other partners work in collaboration to enhance safety outcomes and offer injury prevention services and programming. In 2024, the Workers' Compensation Review Committee recommended a full review of our strategy. Our goal is to strengthen our approach by addressing both physical and psychological injuries, encouraging closer collaboration between WCB, occupational health and safety, and system partners, and learning from best practices in other jurisdictions. Nova Scotia has one of the lowest workplace injury rates in Canada. This is thanks to employers, workers, safety associations, WCB, and government working together. However, challenges remain, particularly in industries like healthcare, construction, and fishing, where musculoskeletal injuries are common as an example. Whether we're reducing workplace fatalities, improving the workers' compensation system, or strengthening harassment prevention policies, our focus remains the same: to create safer, healthier workplaces where every worker can thrive. By working together, government, employers, workers, and industry partners, we can build a future where workplace safety is a shared priority. Now, if okay, I'll take a quick demo through NovaSafe here in real time. So we've pulled it up on the screen. This is the desktop version of NovaSafe. There's a few areas of which I'll draw your attention and then make a few comments before moving into questions, if okay, Chair, related to mobile accessibility. So NovaSafe, the intent is for the resource to be highly accessible and to take safety regulatory information and put it into language that's easy to understand for any number of users, whether that is a worker, a supervisor, whether they're in planning phase for information, or including if they're on the job site. So when you first log on, it's as simple as going to novasafe.ca. You'll scroll down and you'll immediately see the topics that I had referenced earlier. These are 40 broad topics and any number of areas. I'll just click on harassment and violence here to give you a quick peek. Each of the topics are going to have a consistent user interface, if you will, with a summary, which I'll scroll down and provide you information here, providing plain language description, summary information. I'll go a bit lower here to show another good example where there's going to be relevant summaries provided to categories that also have a reference in regulation. So let's see here related to violence. Again, a paragraph of plain language. When you click on the link, it'll take you immediately to the regulatory language that's relevant as well. Just to go back here, so harassment and violence, that's summary information. If you wanted to access legislation, I apologize, I keep hitting the right click. Legislation that's relevant in this space, this tab, so to speak, will take you there, as well as resources that might be relevant. In addition to going back to the main page, topics can also be accessed up above. A few other parts I just want to highlight before moving on. If we go to the search function, I'll give you an example. Ladders, which would be in any number of areas here, can be searched. Ladders, which would be very common in any number of workplaces. So let's put in ladders. And immediately the topic comes up. Click on the topic, and it again takes you to the information that would be relevant related to ladders. As I'd mentioned in the harassment section, again, this would be another example where you have a number of areas that are in plain language, then of course links to the regulatory information. A few other areas to conclude. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, NovaSafe is in both English and French. So if you click up above and click on Francais, the website has what I'll call kind of embedded French language translation, but then also importantly using Google Translate. So let's go back to English, language here. We could access any number of languages for translation in real time. So I'm happy to pick one if anyone wants to comment out from the floor, but let's just say, let's go Croatian. And then in real time, the translation is provided. Sorry? Okay, let's go. Here we go. Again, using the functionality of Google Translate. I'm going to go back to English and then conclude with this section. I would be remiss if not to highlight a few areas in closing. One is individuals that have questions, concerns, et cetera, can always reach the department at 1-800-9-LABOR. And then, of course, through the email safetybranch@novascotia.ca. And then also in the contact section, if you scroll down, there's a button here to continue to stay informed with the work in progress of the department, including that subscribe button, which will sign you up for the quarterly newsletter called The Signal. That is a safety newsletter for the department. So with that, NovaSafe resource, and happy to take questions related to this and, of course, others at your purview.
Thank you, Deputy Grant. So we will now move on to our question period for our committee members. We'll have a first round of questioning that will be 1 hour, and we'll be opening up to the NDP Caucus to begin their line of questioning. There'll be 20 minutes for the NDP, 10 minutes for the Liberal Party, and 30 minutes for the Government Caucus. And then we'll have a second round of questioning after that. What I will do is you remember to wait till I recognize you before you speak, before the light comes on. And I will be keeping track of our timer. And if you're in the middle of an answer or something, I may have to call order just to keep the timing on. So just with all that in mind, I'd like to now pass it over to the NDP Caucus to begin questioning. MLA Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming today. We have a whole list of questions that we're excited to get to you. We'll start with the YWCA in Halifax in particular has advocated for a definition of sexual harassment to be added to the Occupational Health and Safety Act, given the high rate of sexual harassment taking place in skilled trades professions. Will there be space within the coming harassment policy requirement to set up specific measures around sexual harassment in workplaces where we know it's for sure happening?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you very much for the question. As you referenced, really important work underway. We do have an upcoming milestone of September of this year where harassment policies will be required for employers all across the province. We are currently in the process of finalizing regulations that would be relevant for that effective date as well. The definition will include, but will be part of that as the definition of harassment, including sexual violence, gender-based violence, et cetera. And so what we're undertaking for the next number of weeks and months is a process where we'll do a call for comment related to regulatory environment and a number of issues that you had raised that raised by WCA, et cetera, are certainly part of those considerations so that we're all in a place for success come September.
MLA Gallagher.
And I'm assuming that the explicit definition of harassment will be included on the NovaSafe app? Yeah.
Deputy Grant.
Absolutely. The great thing about NovaSafe is which is very much a focus for us, is the continued evolution and the improvement of the resource so that information is timely, it's up to date, and accessible.
MLA Gallagher.
So moving on a little bit. The department's report summarizing public engagement on workplace harassment highlighted that most people don't understand what a psychological injury are. With psychological injuries now being added to the Occupational Health and Safety Act, could you outline what the department is doing to ensure that workers and employers and employees understand what a psychological injury is?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you again for the question. There's a number of areas, and it's an excellent question. with the inclusion starting from gradual onset stress as an example in 2024, and then advancement with harassment policy requirements. We are very much focused on the need for education. We'll be launching an awareness campaign across a number of platforms to achieve the goal that you identified. And then areas like NovaSafe that we continue to promote, including a safety conference that was held last week with a number of stakeholders, safety advisors, et cetera. We very much bear the responsibility and advancing with education and awareness, but I think all of those stakeholders who touch citizens, it's very important for us to ensure that they have the information and they're providing that for the relevant parties as well.
Thank you. MLA Gallagher.
Thank you. I'm curious how the Workers' Compensation Board works collaboratively with small businesses organizations or professional organizations to strengthen safer workplaces. I find that sometimes, especially in small business world, the culture isn't to go straight to workers' compensation boards. Sometimes it's like, oh, they're scary. They might shut me down. And I think we should be working towards a culture where we're encouraging small business owners to ask for help and making sure that we have safer workplaces. So to bring it back, are we working collaboratively with these small business organizations and professional organizations?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you. I'll make some opening comments, then might ask my colleague to provide a bit more depth. So what I would say is the importance of collaboration, all in service of heightened education and awareness to ensure that workers all across Nova Scotia, employees, have safe and healthy work environments. They know they can freely speak up, and avenues that they can raise questions with, whether that's with a supervisor, joint occupational health and safety, reach out to the department. I've provided contact information, et cetera. Related to Workers' Compensation Board, as you say, whether it's formal organizations and forums like CFIB and other advocacy associations, staying connected with those groups to really understand the experience of employers and employees and where there may be gaps where we need to continue to address. But with that, again, I'll invite my colleague for a few comments.
Mr. Nauss.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to highlight a prevention strategy that's currently underway with WCB. So we're partnering with WCB to really flush out what the needs of all Nova Scotians, but also small business. And we're getting some input from our stakeholders. So we have an advisory stakeholder group that will be feeding us some good information. In the past, we've developed a small business toolkit, and this toolkit has been a big hit. It's really a small how-to guide for small business when they first start up. What are their roles and responsibilities under the Occupational Health and Safety Act? And I do want to highlight there are two positions known as safety advisors dedicated to supporting small business. Now, these folks travel around the province. They present, at trade shows and safety conferences, but they also can get into a small business and really help, build that safety culture and that safety program to really support their unique needs.
Thank you. MLA Gallagher.
Thank you very much. I think it's really important that we have a great culture between small businesses and WCB so that all Nova Scotians go home after work at night. Okay, I do not follow the list, and I seem to bump around. I just want to go back to the definitions on the NovaSafe app. We find that the definition of harassment is quite broad, and I wondered if we're working on narrowing down the definitions a little bit more, especially when it comes to bullying and sexual harassment definitions.
Deputy Grant.
As I mentioned in the impending date of September of 25, the process we're engaging in to finalize what the regulatory content and framework would be that supports and underpins the statutory language and changes. And certainly part of that is importantly around definition of including sexual violence, harassment, et cetera, and gender-based considerations as well. So explicit references will be included.
Thank you. MLA Wasney.
Thank you. On that definition question, one of the challenges is, as you know, OHS is the law, and it applies to all workers, whether you work in unionized or private sector settings, and that can make it challenging for there to be common understandings about safety across those boundaries for workers that work in very different cultures and workplaces. So I just want to be clear. What I'm hearing you say is there are regulations being prepared for implementation in September 2025, and those regulations will include a reference definition that will be applicable to all workplaces in Nova Scotia, public sector and private. A, am I clear on that? And B, are those definitions the ones that are going to be used by WCB to referee claims submitted by workers when they suffer psychological injuries?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you, Chair. In short, the answer is yes to all of those questions. So definition will include reference to, and as we mentioned, sexual violence, sexual harassment, et cetera. And then that is the definition that helps guide WCB decision-making as well. And the requirement for harassment policies with employers will be across the province, so full application.
Thank you. MLA Wasney.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad to hear that response to that we're going to have a normalized definition that everybody works from, that decision-making is based on. That's a good thing. In the past, competing definitions across sectors has frustrated the access of workers to recompense when they suffer injury in the workplace, and that's been a major problem. The frustration with competing definitions has been a major factor behind why people don't self-report injuries, right? The experiences of their colleagues in their respective workplace that have not come to a solution is a major reason why people don't report injury in the workplace. So hopefully this helps dismantle some of that reticence to report when there is injury in the workplace. You've also alluded to, that all employers in the province will be required under statute to have in place a policy on harassment in the workplace. So I guess a pair of questions along that line. How is the department monitoring the progress of employers, recognizing that employers are as small as 2 or 3 person small businesses in a very local context, to major public sector employees like the Halifax Regional Centre, that I'm saying arguably the largest employer in the province by sheer numbers? How is the department monitoring that every employer is going to be compliant with that requirement? And by what process is the department going to feed back to employers when their draft policies may not satisfy the regulatory requirements that will come into effect in September 2025 when definitions are enacted in regulation?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you. Again, thanks for the question. So a few comments. Again, in the weeks and months ahead, through a process of receiving comment, feedback, as we kind of march towards this September date. So a number of the issues that you're raising are very much considerations. There absolutely is a reality of the complexity, size, and scope of any number of employers and organizations across Nova Scotia. And then so you need a framework that kind of reflects that reality. Ongoing efforts will include, as we engage with employers where there's just standard compliance outreach, et cetera. This will inform areas where our officers and staff will be engaging in. Of course, we would look for providing reminders to employers. If we really get down the road from a compliance standpoint, there could be in a position of orders being issued to have policies in place. Again, it will be a requirement for employers on September 1. Is there any further comment you wanted to?
Mr. Nauss?
Thank you. Yeah, I just build on the deputy's point there that, you know, we're focused initially would be on promotion and then moving to inspection and verification. And I would say that at that point there would be a soft enforcement. So if folks are making a reasonable effort to get into compliance, obviously we wouldn't, use any of our enforcement tools. But after a few visits and progress isn't being made, we could look to enforcement tools at that point, just to ensure that folks are in compliance.
Thank you. MLA Wasney.
That makes logistical sense to me. I do hope, given the impact that the presence or absence of a policy. I mean, the law is the law. So whether or not an employer has a policy, the fact is that there's going to be definitions against which you can be held to account, as an employer for failing to provide safety to your workers. I mean, whether you have a policy or not is secondary to the law, but nonetheless, I think it's deeply important that there isn't a forever runway for employers to come into compliance on this. It's their I mean, OHS is a joint responsibility. I don't think I have to tell folks on your side of the table, about my union background, and in my capacity, as teachers union president, we undertook unprecedented measures to educate our members about their rights under OHS law. It's not something we could do for them, but employers have this obligation. This is not an obligation that employees can drive. Employers have to meet this standard, and I would encourage the department to consider at what point, and clear communication, the drop dead date on this. You've got a grace period, but at a certain point, if you are not compliant, there are going to be consequences for employers who are not compliant. Workers need to know that the government is going to hold employers that are lax or neglectful about this to account for failure to install this as a basic safety measure in workplaces. And that's not a question, it's a bit of a comment, but just something that I submit for the department's consideration. Just a bit of a time check, Chair. Where are we on?
4 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, 4 minutes. MLA Wasney.
Thank you. The NDP applauds the establishment of serious illness and injury job protection that aligns with the federal employment insurance program. And we know that occurred under sort of updates to legislation last fall. That's a good thing for Nova Scotia. But we have a couple of follow-up questions. The Nova Scotia labor standards don't define what is considered a serious illness or injury. In Nova Scotia, the seriousness of an injury is determined by the medical practitioner completing the assessment. Can you explain the rationale for sort of the lack of uniformity in terms of a definition of what constitutes serious illness under the labor code, the labor standards?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the question. Given a labor services relevant question, this might be one I'll have to, if okay with the committee, take away and then respond back to the committee in writing to make sure we provide the information you're looking for.
Thank you, Deputy. MLA Wasney.
Chair. Just to follow up on that question, we're aware that the federal employment insurance program, that for it there are a number of medical, there's a plurality of medical practitioners who can complete and sign off on required medical certificates that outline the reasons for a leave from work. That list of practitioners includes medical doctors, midwives, and chiropractors. I'm wondering if you can outline what the scope of medical practitioners is in Nova Scotia that are able to complete the department's serious illness or injury leave form.
So, Deputy Grant.
Similarly, very much appreciate the question. We'll promptly respond to the committee with the appropriate information.
Thank you. And our clerk will follow up with you afterwards to make that happen. Emily Wozni with about a minute and a half left.
Yeah, thank you for the response to kind of do the due diligence and return clarity on that. I know that this particular issue, workers applying for access to benefits at time are frustrated because the person that signs their form in some cases is dismissed as, well, they're not qualified, or we don't accept recommendations of this particular practitioner. You're going to have to get that from so-and-so instead. And at times those decisions or rulings can be a bit of a head scratcher. You know, like you're asking me for my GP to sign off on something that my chiropractor is probably the best person to give an opinion about, and they've given it, and yet you won't accept it. So I think clarity about who you can get that kind of documentation from is essential for workers to be able to access this leave provincially. I guess the last question I have here is, the department's form for serious illness or injury leave, how similar is it to the federal form that workers would use to access the federal employment insurance programming in a similar vein?
Deputy Grant with 20 seconds.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll have a robust response, again, prepared promptly for. But I very much appreciate the line of questioning.
Okay. Thank you. And that now concludes the NDP round of questioning, and we'll move on to the Liberal Caucus. MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just start with workers' compensation, and I think the biggest thing is a troubling statistic, troubling for all of us, that there were 20 workplace-related deaths in the last year, which is well above the 5-year average of 9 per year. So just to shine a light on what's happening, I'm wondering if the department can provide the industries where these fatalities occurred, and what preventative measures are in place now to prevent these types of things from happening. And I know Mr. Nauss touched a little bit in a cursory way on preventative measures, but just want to know where these are happening and what kind of injuries are frequently reported in the province.
Deputy Grant.
Thank you very much for the question. In terms of statistics, I wonder if what's being referenced is we did have 20 workplace fatalities in 2024. 7 were acute and 13 were due to chronic illness. The 5-year average that you referenced may be acute as opposed to the number as a whole. Having said that, I'm sure we all have a view that workplace fatalities, serious injuries, one is too many. For the work of the department, it really spans the entire full scope. A lot of the prevention efforts that we undertake related to education awareness, even compliance functions, all of those are in service of preventing really what I'll call the next injury. Even when there are terribly tragic events like a fatality or a serious injury, the investigation that unfolds thereafter, in addition to assessing if actions required, such as charges, but it's to also critically understand where there are safety gaps related to policy, procedure, potentially equipment, so that important learnings can come out of that type of process, again, to prevent injuries in the future. A lot of the system that we have, the internal shared responsibility, if you will, the culture, the safety culture is critical. And so that's a lot of focus and attention for, again, a lot of our efforts, so that individuals feel safe to be able to identify where there are issues in the work site, again, whether that's a conversation with a supervisor, through a joint occupational health and safety committee, interact through the department, so that we can ensure we're focusing our efforts as well to ensure that there is compliance, all in service of having the lowest possible injury rate, and again, preventing workplace fatalities and serious injuries.
Thank you. MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate disaggregating some of that info. Just trying to find out where the industries are that these are happening, though, the acute ones especially. So years ago, the highest rates were always in healthcare. So just wondering if it's still healthcare sector that has the highest rate, and what the current injury rate in the healthcare sector is, and perhaps an update on the implementation of charting the course action plan, which was to look at the workplace safety hazards within the long-term care sector.
Deputy Grant.
And then a few comments, and then I'll ask colleague Scott Nauss for kind of one part of the answer, and then ADM Chouinard for the question related to healthcare, long-term care. With regards to sectors, in terms of injuries, certainly healthcare from an injury rate standpoint, but also importantly construction and fisheries. In terms of the actual rate of injury, I'm not sure if I can go to a colleague, Scott Nauss, for that added detail.
Sure. Mr. Nauss.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, as the deputy had mentioned, the healthcare sector is seeing some of the highest injury rates, and I know earlier we were talking about fatalities. Those sectors that are dominating the number of fatalities tend to be the construction and fishing. And we've done a lot of targeted work in that sector. We really engaged our sector partners as well as WCB, trying to get out ahead, making sure that folks are aware of their responsibilities under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And in the fishing sector, for instance, we've done person overboard drills. So people practice retrieving colleagues that may fall overboard while fishing. We really promote the use of PFDs, which are a requirement under the legislation, and that are a great tool to prevent drowning. On construction, we've done a good job at promoting our tie-off campaign, making sure that folks that are working at heights are utilizing fall protection. We do inspection activities, we call them blitzes, where we'll actually go out and target a certain specific hazard. And in construction, it's normally working at heights. So we're really focused for a week or two on folks who are working at heights, making sure that all the training's in place, the procedures are in place, as well as the equipment's being utilized. So that's how we're focusing on reducing the number of fatalities. And maybe I can turn the floor over to ADM Chouinard, who can talk about some of our work in the healthcare sector, which is dominated by, the musculoskeletal injuries that, although don't produce fatalities, are debilitating workplace injuries and affect our WCB rates, if you will.
ADM Chouinard.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. We're actually really happy to share a little bit more about the work we've been doing with the healthcare sector. As Scott mentioned and the deputy mentioned, high rates of injury. And the deputy also mentioned earlier, we really try to approach our work not just to respond to incidents. Of course we do that. If we get calls, if we get tips, if we see things in the atmosphere and the environment, we go in and we work with sectors and employers. But we also try to take a proactive approach based on data. So when we look at data, we look at these rates and we say, how can we all come together proactively in the interest of prevention and trying to turn those rates around and collaborate to do that. So we did just that starting in 2019 with home care, long-term care, and with the disability support program through Opportunities in Social Development, then DCS. And we had a collaborative approach with the sector where we've actually achieved some wonderful outcomes that really involves a whole of employer sort of approach, employees, safety associations, unions, government, WCB, all working together to a positive end. I'm happy to share that from a home care perspective, we certainly had 100% of our compliance with our recommendations and reduced injuries by 24% from the beginning of the initiative through to 2023. And in long-term care, we reduced injury rates by 16%, which is amazing, 4.85 per 100 in 22, down to 4.08 in 23. So some really great results, some results still pending. We're wrapping that up for the Disability Support Program. And that quantifies, of course, not only in persons' lives being, injury reduced, and that helps both employers, employees, and families, but also in terms of dollar savings, $1 million in savings in the long-term care sector alone from prevention efforts and return to work practices. So, and we're going to move ahead next with acute care, but focus more hospital-based, building on that success in long-term care, home care, and disability support.
Thank you, ADM Chouinard. Emily Rankin with just under 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Nova Scotia has the lowest compensation for injured workers in the whole country. And there was a report by the review committee that made recommendations to the Department on injury prevention, claims administration, coverage, long list of other things. So the logical question is, will the department increase benefits payments for workers that have suffered a workplace injury or illness?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very much appreciate the question. As you referenced, really important to kind of fully recognize the context, if you will, of the need for a review and a report that was provided last year. So as you referenced, generally in Nova Scotia, we have among the highest rates for employers. We have among the lowest benefits for injured workers. And we have among the longest return to work statistics. All of that context very much requires attention and focus to improve all of those, and including with a end goal of an affordable system that fully supports injured workers. And so, of course, benefits is a very important and crucial area in this discussion. As efforts continue to unfold, both by way of WCB and the department on improving the overall environment, these will very much be some of the considerations of, as I referenced, manners in which rates can be more affordable for employers, but of course, critically importantly, that benefits can be looked at for employees as well.
With 5 seconds. Order. We will now move on to the Government Caucus to begin their round of questioning, and just going to get our clerk to set our timer for us. All right. And we're ready to go. So, MLA Burns.
So thank you for the presentation. I just want to go back to NovaSafe, which you started off at. So it looks like a great tool. And so I guess my first question is, can you share some details on how it aligns with the safety branch's commitment to accessibility of information?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciate the question. One of the core principles of the safety branch is ensuring that there is heightened education and awareness for, of course, our regulations, but safety measures and protocols that, again, all have an end goal of keeping workers safe in Nova Scotia. The NovaSafe resource, its core benefit is that it is a easily accessible, readable, understandable resource for the spectrum of individuals that would be fully engaged in ensuring workers are safe. And the other benefit is that it's also a resource that will continue to be, we will engage, that it will evolve and improve and be updated. As an example, when we think about the additional topics that may be required in the future on the horizon, we'll reflect on areas like where we are getting inquiries from, again, employers and employees. What are the nature of requests coming in through the 1-800 line? When we look at our compliance plan, both the targeted and reactive investigations, if you will, throughout the course of the year, all of that information will very much inform how we are continuing to update and improve NovaSafe. So the foundational elements, the benefits of NovaSafe are very much core and will continue to be to the safety branch and to the department.
MLA Burns.
Thank you, Chair. So you let's see. So you're kind of touching on another question I have. I think I'll put these two questions together. So one will be, is NovaSafe being used to collect some of that data? You mentioned some of the data is coming into your 1-800 center. Is that tool also enabling the collection of data? As well, my other question was, you have an overall approach on sharing safety and department information. Is NovaSafe part of a larger approach, or is it the entire approach which you're moving your department towards?
Deputy Minister Grant.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, the analytics that we can access through NovaSafe provides us with information related to where people are accessing the resource. So as an example, we know the most searched topics are employee rights. I'm going to look for head nods. Employee rights, hoists, and then the last one eludes me. But it gives us fall protections. So it gives us that type of data. We can also see how long people are on a topic, on an area, and I believe on average sites are visited and in about a 2-minute length. So it's not as if there is a quick like in and out, if you will, but a good sign that people are accessing and reading information. So again, that the analytics will continue to be reflected on for how we can continue to prove. It has been since June of 2023, so we're about a year and a half, almost 2 years into the execution of that type of resource. And you referenced a really important question as well, that NovaSafe is a critically important tool. We're going to continue to ensure we have education and awareness and where we can promote NovaSafe. As again, I mentioned a recent significant safety conference last week as well. We're doing all we can to make sure people are fully aware of the resource. But it does fit into a bigger, broader principle of ensuring there's heightened education and awareness for what's required in job sites and work sites in service of ensuring we have as safe of an environment as we possibly can. Our staff are constantly engaging and providing safety presentations where we can. The broader culture of enhancing safety culture in Nova Scotia will always be a focus for the department. As we had mentioned in prior discussions, general injury rates in Nova Scotia relative to some comparators might be better, if you will, than some other provinces. But there's continual reflection and work will be required going forward, and that's very much a mission that we take core and central to the department.
Thank you. MLA Burns.
So you're collecting a lot of data. You're putting a lot of effort into sharing NovaSafe. Do you have any outcomes that have been defined from its usage, and do you have any success stories on that you're able to share?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you very much for the question. I'm going to invite my colleague to provide a bit more comment.
Mr. Nauss.
Thank you, Chair. We've had over 50,000 users of the system now, and very proud of that as well. The deputy highlighted this, which is very important, and got a lot of positive feedback from the developer of NovaSafe, CCOHS, who's developed this tool across the country. And our clients tend to stay on the device for approximately 2 minutes, which means they may be finding multiple uses of the tool. So they said that was a very promising indicator as well.
Thank you. MLA Burns.
My last question. So you talked about advertising it to employers. My colleague asked about small businesses getting involved. Can you just share how you're promoting it to new and upcoming businesses to make them aware that this tool is available?
Deputy Grant.
Again, we do things like advertising campaigns. We look for areas where individuals are convening together. Again, a conference last week where we've got a number of people that represent associations, safety advisors, and businesses, organizations, et cetera. These are all really critical avenues and areas. And organizations like CFIB, Construction Association of Nova Scotia. I mean, there are a number where we do our best to ensure that information is provided to organizations, and then also seek to have that disseminated to their membership, so that we really do have a full breadth of understanding and awareness, and we want this tool utilized by any and all.
Thank you. And we'll now move on to MLA Sheehy Richard.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to switch gears a little bit, and following the inclusion of gradual onset stress within the Workers' Compensation Act in 2023, can you discuss a little bit about what measures have been implemented to modernize workplace mental health strategies, if you will?
Deputy Grant.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to ask for a comment from my colleague, ADM Vanessa Chouinard.
ADM Chouinard.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question. Really important. And I think it's great that that was an example that you chose, because it's a wonderful example of, the reality that we are now understanding that psychological injury is as important to consider as physical injury. And that's why, as of effective September 1st, 2025, there will be regulations in place which sets the expectation in terms of what the regulations will lay out, the policy expectation, the type of things that need to be in those policies to help support all workplaces. And, mental health, obviously, is something that we can work to help prevent injury in that space as well as react to it, and making sure that all employees have clarity in terms of what their rights are. They have clarity in terms of what processes are to help keep themselves mentally well, as well as respond to should an incident or an injury occur. So I think this is just, we're following along, with the evolution of an understanding of workplace injury and helping to also keep people well. And as we mentioned earlier, our big focus is not just on an incident or the injury. It's about prevention and keeping people well in the workplace. So it will be really, really critical that that type of attention that's paid towards physical injury and preventing those, the same attention is going to be paid in the workplaces. So I think just highlighting and highlighting that psychological and physical are both equally important is something that really sets a tone and an expectation to help shift culture and to reinforce the culture we're moving towards, which is really, really promoting mental well-being in the workplace.
MLA Sheehy Richard.
And I just wonder if you can share how the recognition of this gradual onset psychological injuries have impacted, like the impact that it's had on Nova Scotians, like the changes.
I'll wait for direction. Okay, ADM Chouinard.
Yeah, I think just building on my last response, I think first of all, it's important for awareness, right? Mm-hmm. So part of our work, and I know that Scott mentioned earlier about sort of a soft launch when those regulations come into effect. We firmly believe and have seen people want to comply with the rules. Right? People want to be compliant. They want their workplaces to be safe. And bringing these topics, so for gradual onset injury to be a compensable injury, having anti-harassment, so workplace harassment and bullying regulations really brings to the forefront that these are real issues and that people shouldn't feel shame. People should feel they are safe. People should feel there are pathways for them to access supports and help. So I think all of this helps us build the culture we all want to see, which recognizes severity of mental well-being and mental injury and psychological injury in the workplace.
Thank you. MLA Sheehy Richard.
So, in rural Nova Scotia and all parts of the province, really. It's not really defined there. I shouldn't have started with that. But I see at home in my constituency, the burden that is the overburden on the mental health and crisis response individuals, especially in our shelters and working in the front line. So I was just wondering if you could speak about what efforts might be being made to support a healthy workplace for the overburdened mental health crises workers in particular.
ADM Chouinard.
Yeah, I'll just continue to kind of to build on. It's all the same theme, right? As you could tell, it's a multi-pronged approach that deals with about a bunch of similar challenges or issues that we do face. And I'm glad that you highlight the real challenges faced by those working in the crisis line. I spent 5 years at the Department of Health, so I'm very familiar. And certainly, it's really tough. And day after day, that type of work really is impactful on an individual. And individuals need to know how to keep themselves well. They need to know that they can reach out for support internally. A lot of workplaces we do know have supported programs that like EFAP, like I think some of you are familiar with that, where individuals can access direct supports themselves to take care of their mental health and take care of their well-being. And I think it's I was just going to say that I think acknowledging that, continuing to build on those supports and supporting each other. There's a lot of peer support programs in place for mental health workers, both in our system and beyond. And I think that much covers it.
Thank you. MLA Sheehy Richard.
I think that we answered this one. I guess I just want to talk a little bit more so that I can understand better the process that's happening between now and the 25th. I think the deputy alluded to we're going to have some engagement sessions. I'm sure that they haven't just started, they're ongoing. But can you kind of give me a picture of what the next number of months leading up into that soft launch looks like, just so that I'm more aware and can maybe share what's to come with individual employers and people that might be interested in knowing this work's being done.
Deputy Grant.
Wonderful, thank you. Again, I very much appreciate the question. And also importantly, really robust engagement prior to legislative changes being advanced as well with the Stronger Workplaces Nova Scotia Act in the fall of 2024, I believe it was September of 2024. So leading up to that moment. And now we're in a phase of, prior to the effective date, of finalizing what would be the regulations that would then, as I mentioned in a prior question, very much underpin and some of the operationalizing considerations. And so what we're undertaking over the next number of weeks and months is a call for comment. And we'll have engagement with a variety of stakeholders for a number of considerations that have been raised here today, but to ensure that employers are set up for success come September. And then throughout that process as well, there'll also be input and feedback that will continue to inform the work of the department. September 1 is a critical milestone, and then there will come a September 2nd. And beyond. And so we'll continue to reflect on the environment we're in and if there are gaps and how they can be addressed via any number of tools and levers, policy, regulatory, et cetera. But it'll be a very important and critical number of weeks and months.
ADM Chouinard.
Just to build on the deputy's response, we'll also make sure we have a lot of promotional materials, supports, tools, templates for business. We want to make sure people feel supported as they aim to be compliant with the regulations come September. So there'll be lots of supports available and lots of examples prepared, webinars, videos, like lots of things like that, so that businesses are not left alone to figure this out. We're here with them to work together and collaborate to make sure everybody's prepared to be successful and support the workplaces.
Thank you. MLA Sheehy Richard.
Well, it's almost like we're in sync because that was exactly my next question was to ask, like, I know that municipalities in particular, I'm thinking of my regional municipality and they're working on policies now all the time with, anti-racism policies and setting up new committees. So I guess that was my question was the role that we're going to play as government helping businesses too, not just municipal units and government, but helping them improve like the psychological health in their actual workplaces. So I don't know if there is anything more that you can add, but
So ADM Chouinard, is there anything more you can add?
Nothing else for me to add, but I'll certainly invite other members of the panel if there's anything else I forgot.
Deputy Grant.
We fully expect, as the ADM mentioned, to have an impactful campaign to enhance education awareness. So again, we'll focus on stakeholder groups where people are convening and gathering in forums, but then looking at our social means and traditional means as well, so that people are fully aware of what's expected, what's required. But then, as we've been talking about, we very much want employers to be in a position for success.
MLA Sheehy Richard.
I'm just going to finish off before I pass it to my colleague, but I would think too, would there be some kind of a survey that we don't just encompass the employers, but we also can hear, like, will it be given opportunity for those working that are feeling this type of stress or this type of work environment so that they can give input in a way that is, anonymously, if you will, so that they can highlight some, because, those are things I would love to be able to share through my channels as well, so that maybe we can hear from a broader approach. That's my comment.
Deputy Grant.
I very much appreciate the comments and questions because I think it identifies what will be a really important principle for us, again, September 2nd and beyond, is a really important milestone, of course, to have a requirement and for policies in place. Over time, how employers and employees are interacting with these policies will be a very important reflection, both for those two groups and for the department as well, to really understand what are the key success areas that we can continue to build on. Wonderful. What are the challenges and barriers that are still present that we need to address? Yes, there are any number of tools for receiving feedback. Of course, anonymous survey can be part of that. We'll also reflect on data, including questions, inquiries that may come in via email or to our 1-800 line. All of that will continue to inform our work to ensure we're continually reflecting and evolving and not just feeling like a problem's been solved and then no further work to be done. We're actually very much on the opposite part of that spectrum, continuing to improve and focus and where there's our best practice, where are there gaps. It's generally what our posture is across the department.
Thank you. Well, now, MLA Federi.
Thank you very much. I'm really proud about the work the province is continuously investing in safety and well-being of our workers and the workplace. One of such initiatives I'm really impressed about is the funding of the summer camps for youth interested in skilled trade. And I think it's always important for people to invest in the future, especially people who are not yet trade workers or who are not yet in the workplace, to begin to gain and gather some information. So my thought of my question is simply just to figure out how could the department share how the youth summer camps are helping shape safety first culture among the future trade persons, and also are there metrics that is presently used to track those youth initiatives, see how influenced they are regarding apprenticeship application or interest in skilled trade.
Deputy Grant.
A really critical topic. I'll make a few comments and then, again, invite colleagues for further. What a critical moment to ensure, going back to the points about the principles of safety culture in Nova Scotia and job sites and work sites all across the province. While individuals are in a school setting and including when they are considering industries like we had talked about earlier that have risks that need to have focus and mitigants in place, including around construction. And so the department does undertake efforts of getting into O2 classrooms to provide presentations where students are convening is a wonderful opportunity to ensure that we're providing them with safety-related information. It's very much a principle that is important in the traditional school setting in high schools. But then, of course, if they're in a pre-apprenticeship program and interacting with NSCC, as you identified, if they're in a summer camp setting, if they're doing direct entry, there's a number of industry and sector associations as well that very much focus on safety awareness and programming, but really critical for improving and continuing to focus on safety culture is this moment in time when they're entering into and interacting. But with that, just a few comments from my colleague, Scott Nauss.
Mr. Nauss.
Thank you, Chair. Just to build on a few points that the Deputy already highlighted, we're very proud of our work we're doing, with youth, just in general, those who are looking at the trades and others. And we do know that youth tend to like to access their information through digital means. So again, NovaSafe is a great way for us to connect with those folks who are young and looking to get into the trades, and we're really trying to digitize a lot of our services. ADM Chouinard highlighted we have a big promotional campaign on psychological safety that's coming out. It's going to have a very strong digital presence. So really trying to connect with youth in the way they want to be connected with. And the other key piece is our partnering with trade-related organizations, whether it be union or trade specific, really connecting with them, trying to support them as they support their members and people in their organization as they try to guide youth before they start their career, so that they're hitting the ground in the right direction, right, with all the safety information they need, so they have that safety culture built up in them so that it keeps them safe throughout their career.
ADM Chouinard.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the question. Again, very exciting topic on apprenticeship. So certainly March break, summer camps, safety is a key part of those camps and a great opportunity to not only expose to the trades, but help, as Scott and the deputy said, about starting to entrench the importance of safety culture as they move forward in their careers. There's a wonderful spot here in HRM called the Trades Exhibition Hall. It's another opportunity for youth. It's booked out like a year in advance for schools and youth groups and to come out and get exposure to the different trades, but also get exposed to the importance of safety as a part of that. And there's many different pathways for apprentices, as the deputy shared. We have the traditional core programming through NSCC, of course, safety paramount in those settings and in those classrooms, as well through the direct entry and enhanced direct entry pathways that we have for apprenticeship. Safety paramount there, all the training required and supports provided from industry. So it's everybody's lifting and everybody. I will say, since I joined the department in January, and since joining, I've been continuing to be impressed with how at the forefront safety is in every conversation we have with stakeholders, employers, unions, et cetera. So we cover it off on all fronts, from youth all the way through to those sort of completing their technical training through their apprenticeship.
Thank you. MLA Federi.
So I was just wondering, because part of my last question, or my prior question was, do you have the way we are tracking to see how this initiative is influencing this youth, into apprenticeship applications, and tracking to see, how many of them are being interested as a result of attending one of those youth summer camps, into any of those skill trades. I'm just wondering if there's any metrics or whether we're tracking those metrics in any way.
MLA, sorry. I don't know if it was a demotion I was doing there, sorry. Deputy Grant.
Thank you very much for the question. So one will be a response and commentary, and then in terms of the data request, I'm going to take that away, and then again, when we're responding to committee clerk on questions raised by MLA Wozni, I'll also provide for you. Related to summer camps, March break camps, et cetera, what ADM Chouinard was mentioning, I think, is a critical piece to highlight, which is the importance of having exposures for individuals when they're considering that they're going into construction trades, so that they have experience related to handling tools, handling equipment, what it's like for a day in the life of any number of trades, whether that is in a job setting and you're crawling under apparatus, or if you are on scaffolding, as an example. As much as we can create those opportunities for the people to be able to visualize and experience what life is like in any number of wonderful trades, it will also enhance their decision-making of whether it is a good fit for them, whether they it could have the experience of enhancing excitement. It also, very importantly, which is important, for them to assess maybe this one trade is not maybe what I expected, or it's a different piece of information, and they can then make other decisions about pathways that they want to undertake. And that's important for employers, for our educational systems, et cetera, so that those that are in programs have made a conscious choice, so to speak, of from a place of experience. So I think things like these camps, as mentioned, the trades exhibition hall as well, all of these different environments are really critical to get students into, or any number of individuals who are considering going into the trades, including mid-career transitions as well. It's another important area that's a focus for us.
Thank you. MLA Fedare with minute and 20 seconds.
Okay, I know if I definitely have to ask this question. It's around just curious regarding what efforts are in place. I know we have short time to ensure safety and training resources are reaching racialized communities and immigrant workers with whom don't have, they are not underrepresented in a lot of areas. I'm just wondering in a few seconds whether there's anything you could speak around what efforts is being done to ensure that all of this is reaching those, either immigrant workers or racialized, underrepresented population within our communities.
Deputy Grant.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciate that question. As an example, we do partner with and utilize ISANs as an example to ensure that we're interacting and providing information that's accessible and through an organization, again, that individuals have a relationship with, so that we're always reflecting and learning to make sure that people are receiving an information that we're kind of meeting them where they are, so that we're interacting and communicating. And then ISANs can continue to support our efforts by reflecting on, again,
Order.
Things that are...
Sorry, our time for the PC Caucus questioning is over, and we'll now move into our second round of questioning, which will be half an hour. Normally it's 15 minutes for the governing caucus, and then 15 minutes to be split between the other caucuses. I believe MLA Rankin has ceded his time to the NDP caucus, so we'll now move to the NDP caucus, and I believe MLA Gallagher is going to begin.
It's me first. Thank you, Chair. I'm thinking of specific sectors that don't have a great administrative culture or a corporate culture, and I'm thinking of like agriculture or fisheries or even the forestry sector. And I'm wondering how we're supporting these industries. I mean, we're talking about apps and we're talking about toolkits online and stuff. I find it very difficult to get a farmer via email. So I'm wondering how we're supporting these industries, especially seeing how I am assuming these are probably more higher risk sectors.
Deputy Grant.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I invite comment from my colleague, Scott Nauss.
Mr. Nauss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. We find the key to connecting with all sectors, but particularly the sectors you highlighted, is through the sector associations. They're quite often members of the community themselves, and they're a great I guess, sounding board and kind of bring in that street credibility, to open doors for us. And we also engage government departments when possible. So if we're working in the agricultural sector, which we did very strongly, for instance, during the pandemic and supporting the temporary foreign worker population, we would often also engage the government department, the Department of Agriculture, to really help us connect with those clients and employees.
MLA Gallagher.
Wonderful. Thank you for that answer. That makes sense. Just one more question, and then I'm going to pass it off to my colleague here. Moving forward, I'm curious if the Workers' Compensation Board Review Committee will include representation of employees, and I'm wondering what that might look like, what representation of an employee on the board will look like.
Deputy Grant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. In short, the review committee is made up of employee and employer reps, equal representation, and notably WCB, the board as well, has defined seats for employer-employee reps. Very important that those perspectives are always funneling into and moving into our processes and fully are considered and understood when policies are created, amended. We always need to reflect on how our practices and approaches and, again, legislative frameworks need to evolve to meet the conditions and are also continued heightened understanding and awareness of what keys to success are.
Thank you. And MLA Wozni.
Thank you, Chair. I want to pick up for a moment on some questions that my colleague from Halifax Clayton Park asked a little bit earlier about connecting with youth and engaging them to make them aware. I once upon a time was an O2 teacher, and so I'm very familiar with sort of the intersection of apprenticeship, Nova Scotia Community College, Skill Trades Nova Scotia, and that certainly is a meaningful in for youth that are considering or may actually be taking tangible steps to realize a career in the trades. But in the Nova Scotia labor market, youth are a critical source of labor beyond the trades, and I'm wondering what the department is doing to normalize or socialize a culture of safety for workers that will soon enter the workforce. We often have people, that they all want to get their course as a mandatory credit for high school learners. If we listen to all those people, all high school students would take would be mandatory courses, and they'd get actually no academic training relevant to post-secondary destinations. But so I'm certainly not advocating for that, but has the department turned its mind to like a systemic rather than just the kids, because kids in O2 programs largely are headed for trades by and large? Has the department turned its mind to perhaps the middle school age group before kids are employment ready, to teach kids about OHS and workplace safety and introduce them to courses that could be delivered in a public school context, like Fall Safe, foods, safe food handling, et cetera, to provide students with that kind of learning at a junior high age so that they arrive at the age of employment already equipped with fundamental knowledge about occupational health and safety.
Deputy Grant.
A wide range of comments. I very much, again, appreciate the perspectives and look forward to future discussions on the experience that you would have had with O2 program. I've, like ADM Vanessa Chouinard, it's been since January of being at the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration. A number of discussions, I'm sure staff know the focus and priority I have on communication for students that are in 10 grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. And to your point, even reflecting earlier of what are all the ways in which we can create the important perspective, and it very much becomes part of an ingrained culture for them. And so I'm going to invite ADM Chouinard to make a few comments, but it's one of the reasons and key benefits, as an example, of NovaSafe to come full circle, of having an environment that is relevant for a generation of individuals, of how they're interacting with information, how they access information, consume, et cetera. And by way of having mobile-friendly components within NovaSafe. Apologize, I didn't necessarily get to it in the front part of the demonstration, but I believe you might all have promotional material related to NovaSafe. If not, we'll make sure folks have. But there's a QR code. You just, like camera function, again, this is going to be second nature to a generation that are currently in or recently graduated in a school setting. And immediately when they access the resource, it'll be a prompt on their screen of how they can download it on the main screen of their phone. It'll function and act for them like an app, but not having to go through the App Store. Again, I think always reflecting on how we're interacting with and sharing information is really important. But with that, if okay, Chair, just welcome comment from ADM Chouinard.
ADM Chouinard.
Thank you. Yeah, I love this question. I know I said we've been talking about safety. It's been at the paramount of all our discussions since certainly I've joined. It's really drilled into both of us, for sure. Equally common topic for us is youth. As the deputy said, the discussion about how to communicate with youth, both on everything from safety to apprenticeship opportunities to other opportunities, has been a significant amount of discussion. And I too would love to pick your brain on a few other thoughts. But I will say that I know I mentioned the Trades Exhibition Hall. That is a great spot to bring kids lower and lower in age to start to get exposed to the trades and the safety aspects. And building on, I think, a question that you asked earlier related to newcomers and youth, we have partnered with the Federation of Labor to develop an online training module to help support youth and newcomers be really clear and build their capacity and capability and essential safety knowledge that they have. So we do very much have the youth population in our midst and in our sights, with lots of ideas to come how we can both bridge that grade 9 that we see a lot around as they get closer to graduating high school, but also how low can we go in terms of age, where kids will really start to grasp it and it will become ingrained kind of in them, right? So anyway, I think that's a big focus for us is on the youth side. Yeah.
Thank you. MLA Wozni.
Yeah, the old adage, is it better to teach old dogs new tricks, or is it better to treat dogs that haven't yet entered the workforce, to equip them to avoid sort of the pitfalls and the mistakes that have been repeated for a long time? Just, offer that as a constructive thought. And as a parent of, my youngest is in grade 10 now. But I think the golden opportunity to influence the way a generation thinks, they've already made up their minds about money by the time they get to high school. Teaching high school students financial literacy when their minds are made up is too late. Start earlier where you have a chance to give them food for thought that influences the way that they treat money. And I think safety is a similar thing, that if it's normalized to talk about safety, that you walk in the door expecting it, how to handle safety situations regardless of the workplace that you enter. And we know that youth work in just such a diverse spectrum of employment situations from one tip of this province to the other. We have kids working in fish plants and in the woods and in construction and retail and food service. I think there's a lot of wheels to that concept of teaching kids at a more younger, more impressionable age, so that when they do enter the workforce, they already have some well-formed, evidence-based attitudes to take with them. Tip of the cap, I appreciate remarks offered by the panel about work done to remedy negative outcomes in terms of workplace safety in high-risk sectors like you've talked about, fisheries and construction. I want to turn for a moment to another sector that We have some very discouraging news in terms of worker safety, and that's in public education. The Auditor General's report last June flagged that school violence is present at epidemic levels in Nova Scotia, and actually, pointed to some major shortcomings of occupational health and safety as it doesn't show up and materialize in public school settings. And sort of the key finding, 1.36 in her report, the HRCE and CSAP are not compliant with OHS Act violence in the workplace regulations. That there are deep concerns about public school employers relying on OHS tracking of school violence that simply isn't happening. And because people don't know to report it as occupational health and safety issues, it's underreported as an issue. So I know in my time as NSTU president, I tried to raise this issue with the absence of an OHS culture in public schools. Public school workers don't see themselves as workers. They see themselves as teachers or EPAs or principals. And to think about themselves as workers is not something they do. It's not normal for people to see themselves as workers. If a student is injured at school, everybody instantly gets the student insurance form to fill it out. If a staff member is injured at work, nobody automatically hands them the form to report an injury in the workplace. And I raised this over a series of meetings and months. I went back to the classroom in 2022 for a year and 3 quarters before I was elected, and I saw no visible change in the way that schools tackle OHS or normalize OHS. The Auditor General has flagged this as a major component of the epidemic of school violence, and I'm wondering what the department can tell this committee about what it's doing to get on this horse and get it going, because a lot of people are injured, a lot of people are missing work, a lot of people are not able to return to work because of the near total absence of an OHS culture in public schools. And it's intersectional relationship with school violence. We're thinking about staff. Schools are a tricky place for OHS because youth are not covered by OHS legislation in the way that adults are. And so reporting around how students are injured occurs differently. But the picture of whether or not schools are a safe place is deeply incomplete because it's not reported in a reliable way. And so we have no real way to measure how schools are or are not safe. And that's a project that demands immediate, significant remedial attention. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit about that.
Deputy Grant with 45 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with that, I very much appreciate and thank the member for the question on a very important and difficult topic. And in the interest of time, we've talked earlier about the importance of safety culture in any number of job sites. It's very important that people feel comfortable and safe for conversations with supervisors, with OHS committees, with union representatives as well, and of course utilizing outreach to departmental resources whenever they can. But fully expect this to be a very important conversation that we'll continue to have.
Thank you. That concludes the NDP second round. We'll now move on to the PC caucus. Will MLA McGillivray?
Thank you, Chair. I'll jump around a little bit with my questions. There's a lot of them have touched on already, but just want to maybe dig in a little deeper on a couple things. The first is the summer camp for youth. My stepson's going to NSCC in September for electrical. So I'm just wondering if I guess on a personal as well as professional level, the summer camp for youth, can you expand upon what safety skills they'll learn at this camp, and also how would they access it? Like, where is it, when is it, those type of questions?
Deputy Grant.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. There are a number of topics and areas that are covered. Again, these camps are critical moments in time to enhance the education and awareness, and we've talked about really instill core principles within students as they kind of continue on their journey of education in a trades environment and sector. Of course, there's general orientation related to worker rights, but also related to safety focus on safe use of tools, PPE, so personal protective equipment, and hazard identification. So really important and critical aspects that will be important learnings when they're in that type of environment that will ensure that they're safe while they're in a work setting. And again, a really important priority for all those involved, the apprenticeship agency, employers, NSCC, et cetera, and of course the department.
MLA McGovern.
Thank you, Chair. So just to follow up on that, what about would someone access the programs? When are they? Where are they? Those type of things. Like, are they across the province? Are they? How long are they? Are they a day, a course? Are they a couple? Like, those type of questions.
Deputy Grant.
So we both have March break camps, which we've passed, but summer camps as well. What I'll do, it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm happy to promote. So I'll provide information to the committee so that MLAs and committee members have for out of interest, but then of course continuing to spread the word is also very important and helpful. So thank you very much.
MLA McGilvery.
Okay, thank you. To switch gears again, so can you give me some insight into the department's conversation regarding workplace safety with the fruit growing sector in Nova Scotia?
Mr. Jeffers.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. So as Mr. Nauss alluded earlier, we draw a lot on the different associations and other partners around the province in many sectors, and that's an area that we depend very much on the association. They have that close connection with the individual employers out there in the field, and like a lot of different rural sectors, there's some very unique hazards that are associated with that sort of work. As a matter of fact, we've been working closely with fruit growers over the last few years just to support them in some of the equipment they want to use and some of the practices that they need to undertake, to do their work, which is very, very unique and very specialized. So it's one of those, it's a small group, but it's also one that, we've been able to support and work with along the way. We're hoping actually that some of the recent legislation is going to support us there with some of the equipment that they're hoping to use as well.
Thank you. MLA McGilvery.
So I'll switch gears once again into a little bit of healthcare field. So what efforts have been made to accommodate and support workers in the healthcare field? Could you speak to issues such as the impact of increasing staffing or the impact of mental health supports?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you very much. Invite comment from my colleague, ADM Chouinard.
ADM Chouinard.
Thank you. Could you restate about the increased staffing? I just want to make sure I answer your question.
MLA McGilvery.
Thank you. So could you speak to issues such as the impact of increasing staffing? So that would be for the first part of the question. What efforts have been made to accommodate and support workers in the healthcare field? And then could you speak to the issues such as the impact of increased staffing?
ADM Chouinard.
Thanks for the question. I spoke a little bit about a very deliberate health sector focus initiative that started a few years ago related to, of course, home care and long-term care and also disability support. So, of course, as I mentioned, that was a very focused effort to, instead of just responding to a specific incident by call or something that was flagged for us, we went proactively and worked collaboratively with Aware Nova Scotia, with unions, with employers, with employees, all coming together, and Workers' Compensation Board, I should include them as well, to help support them so we can get out ahead of incidents. We know that some workers are faced, given the health human resource challenges. We do know that staffing levels are a challenge, and when there are reduced staffing levels, even though all efforts are made to make sure that healthcare staff don't have to work short-staffed, sometimes that does occur because of shortages, and that can have an impact. So really important context as we work with the health sector to say, how do we support patients safely? How do you protect yourself, protect the patient? And that's the type of work that really we were able to help achieve those reductions in, home care of 24% and 16% injury rates for long-term care. And you think about home care workers, are so grateful, and thank you to all the home care workers in this province, because they support some of our most frail and vulnerable Nova Scotians. And it's so important when they're going into house after house after house. It's very different than being in a big acute care hospital-based setting. So it's really important that we paid so much attention to support them and keep them well and keep them safe. That does involve looking at things like what equipment can support, what are the best practices, what are the ways we help lift and turn patients and things like that. So that's really the focus, and that's how we help to kind of to really get the achievement and the outcomes that we got through that initiative.
Thank you. MLA McGilvery.
Can you speak on the same vein to the mental health supports, how that impacts the healthcare field?
Deputy ADM Chouinard.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. I'll build on some of my comments from the questions from MLA Sheehy Richard related to mental health workers. And again, I think it is, while very challenging, certainly workplace and challenging work that our mental health clinicians perform every day. There are many challenging jobs and challenging workplaces, of course, where people face challenges each day, and our psychological health and safety regulations that will come into effect in September help set the stage. They help set the expectation. They help to drive that culture forward in the area that we want, to ensure people understand that psychological injury and mental well-being and mental health are critical to having successful and healthy employees at work. That allows them to provide the right service, to patients. And when you think about the type of work that mental health clinicians do, they have very, very, tough patients and tough circumstances that they face every day, and that can be very challenging on their own well-being and their own mental health, and they have to really take care of that. So this helps, I would say, again, evolve the culture to one of acceptance. People do not have to feel shameful. In fact, they should be proud to get out in front of any risk, mental health injury risk, or anything like that, to help keep them well, help keeping them in a place where they want to be, which is supporting Nova Scotians that are vulnerable or in need.
Thank you. MLA McGilvery.
Thank you for those very comprehensive answers. I appreciate it. Switching gears again a little bit, how do you ensure that training, education, and research regarding health and safety in the workplace reaches and is promoted to all Nova Scotians, such as those in rural areas? So myself from Pictou County, Pictou Centre, it's a rural area of Nova Scotia, so I was just wondering about how you ensure that training, education, and research is promoted to all Nova Scotians, including rural areas.
Deputy Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for the question. Kind of bringing it around full circle, it's one of the great benefits of NovaSafe, which is that we can have accessible resources that are continually updated, that continually evolve with best thinking, best practices, and reflective of the experience of employers and employees across the province. I'd mentioned earlier, one of the key data points for us will be topics and areas of which people are making inquiries into our 1-800 line, into our email address, when we're out engaging with industry, with sector councils, sector representation, engaging with folks like the Nova Scotia Federation of Labour and various other union representatives as well, those that are representing interest of employees. All of that information is going to be critical for the continued modernization and evolution of our resources and how we approach safety prevention in Nova Scotia.
Thank you. MLA McGilvery?
Switching gears once again, can you tell us a bit more about the safety branch and how it works not only with LSI but across government?
Deputy Grant?
Wonderful. I invite comment from our Senior Executive Director of the branch, Scott Nauss.
Mr. Nauss?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this question. It's really important that, and I know my other colleagues have highlighted this, that we really want to influence a culture here with safety, and it's so important that we utilize, our sister departments. So we touched on a few, our work in the healthcare sector and long-term care sector. We partnered, for instance, with seniors in long-term care. They understood their clients and their clients' needs best, and we were able to tailor our services and programs to meet those needs. I talked earlier about the work that we've done in the agriculture sector. Again, we partnered with the Department of Agriculture, who has a good, clear line of sight to the challenges, and we're able to support that. Those clients better. That utilizing that connection. Again, off the top of my head, I'm thinking of our work that we've done with the road builders through Public Works has been invaluable in connecting us with those folks who are building and enhancing our roads and buildings. So, always looking to partner with anyone that we felt could leverage our work in the safety space.
Thank you. MLA McGilvery with about 2 minutes, 40 seconds.
Okay, so just to build on that previous question a little bit, what is the working relationship between the safety branch of LSI and the Workers' Compensation Board?
Deputy Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. A critical relationship and partnership. There are a number of intersections, and among them, which is top priority, very critical, which is prevention. And as we continue to move forward, including coming out of a really important and impactful review of our system here in Nova Scotia, one of those important topics is around prevention, and for us to be reflecting on roles and responsibilities. And that's something we'll be doing in concert with WCB to ensure that the right resources are in place for promotion, for education, for awareness, and resources and activities are fully focused on high-value measures to ensure that we are fully extending the full breadth of these two organizations to enhance, again, prevention in Nova Scotia. The WCB system, of course, governed by way of Workers' Compensation Act, and yes, they have a board, but the continual interaction with the department is really critical because we very much have the exact same goals. I had mentioned earlier, for context for our existing system in a prior question, where we have an environment where we have comparatively low rates to other provinces in Canada. We have low benefits, and we have comparatively high rates for employers, and then long return to work statistics. That's a context that very much requires attention and focus, and it requires that of all partners involved, and WCB is very much both in the middle and then very much connected to us on that journey.
Thank you. And MLA McGilvery with 30 seconds.
So I'll just take the 30 seconds to let you know this was a very informative session. Thank you for the information. Very pertinent answers. Did answer the questions asked, so we appreciate that very much. And we appreciate the work you do day to day. It's very important to the Nova Scotians that the work you guys do is trickles down to their experience at the workplace each and every day. So thanks for all you do, and thank you very much.
Thank you. So that concludes our question period for our guests today. We'd like to extend to you an opportunity to have any kind of closing remarks. Deputy Grant, if you'd like.
I'll be brief, but also extend the gratitude. These are wonderful environments, both for ensuring ongoing dialogue. I would also say as an individual, again, in the department for 2 or 3 months, these are very important environments for me to be listening and to understand the perspectives that committee members have and the experiences of individuals and to inform our ongoing efforts. Again, they're all in service of goals that we all agree upon, which is healthy and safe work environments. Very quick mental math, but on any given day, we're looking at our working age population and including part-time, full-time work, 3 to 3.5 million hours of work that are in job settings for a wide spectrum. And to that end, the importance of safety culture in a general sense, and of course reflecting very specifically within sectors where there's context that requires further heightened attention. But these are, again, the principles that guide our work. So thank you very much for the time this afternoon, and look forward to future discussions.
Thank you. So, Mr. Jeffers, Mr. Nauss, ADM Chouinard, Deputy Grant, thank you for coming today. It's been a great conversation. Our committee will take a 3-minute recess to allow our guests to leave, and then we'll come back to do a bit of committee business after that. So thank you very much. We are in recess. Order. I call the meeting back to order, and we'll move on to committee business. The first thing I'll bring to everybody's attention is some correspondence, a March 21st letter received from Christina King at the Executive Council office. Everyone would have received that, concerning new format of ABC's packages. Redesigned Form A replaces the previous form, and everyone would have received that. Is there any questions or comments? Okay, so just recognizing receipt of that letter. The next is a request by one of the witnesses for the May 6th HR meeting to appear virtually. Invest Nova Scotia plans to send 2 representatives to our May 6th meeting. And since one will have to travel from Cape Breton, they've asked if they could appear virtually, and we believe that that's Wanda McLean. Is there any discussion, or is there any issue if we that we offer get the clerk to offer that they can appear virtually? We all in agreement that that's okay? Okay, wonderful. So we have direction for our clerk to reach out to Wanda McLean, and that's the only business we had. Is there any other business? Okay, wonderful. So with that, our next meeting will be Tuesday, May the 6th from 1 to 3 p.m. Supports for entrepreneurs with witnesses from Invest Nova Scotia, Ignite Atlantic, the Centre for Entrepreneurship and Education and Development, and Futurepreneur. So with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.